For thousands of years, silver has meant one thing: wealth. It's the stuff of pirate treasure, royal crowns, and family heirlooms. But right now, this ancient metal is going through a massive identity crisis. It's not just treasure anymore. It's becoming one of the most critical building blocks for our entire future. So yeah, let's get into it.
See, on one side, you have the silver we all know, right? It's that safe haven asset, it's currency, it's beautiful jewelry. But on the other side, you have silver, the workhorse. It's literally inside the solar panels on our roofs, it's in the electric cars we're all driving, and it's even in the powerful hardware that makes AI possible. And this dual identity, this is the absolute key to understanding everything happening in the silver market today.
And that brings us right to the heart of the matter. With these two massive forces pulling on it from opposite directions, we're hearing this buzz, this talk of a silver shortage. So what's really going on? Well, to figure that out, we first have to understand a pretty basic question. How does silver even get its price in the first place?
Okay, let's pull back the curtain a little bit and see exactly how the world decides what this incredibly important metal is worth every single day. That price you see on the news, it's not just some random number. It's called the LBMA silver price, and that's the global benchmark. It gets set once a day in London through this really sophisticated and transparent electronic auction. I mean, think about that. One price set in one place that's used by miners, banks, and jewelers all over the world. So how does this auction actually work? It's basically a high-tech balancing act. First, an opening price gets tossed out there. Then, for just 30 seconds, the big players, we're talking major banks and bullion traders, they jump in with their buy and sell orders. The system then checks, are the buys and sells close enough? We're talking within 500,000 ounces. If they are, bam, that's the price for the day. If not, the price gets tweaked and the 30-second clock starts all over again until they find that perfect balance. Okay, so that's how it's priced. Now for the really big question. Where is all this silver actually coming from? Because this is where the whole story about a shortage really starts to take shape. As you can see, there are really only two ways we get silver. The vast majority of it, about 80%, has to be physically dug out of the ground from mines. Only about 20% comes from recycling, old electronics, and jewelry. And here's the kicker. You can't just flip a switch and get more silver from mines. It can take a decade or more to get a new mine up and running. That means supply is really slow to react when demand suddenly spikes. So you add up all the mining and all the recycling, and what do you get for 2024? About 1.01 billion ounces. Now, I want you to burn that number into your brain because it is absolutely critical for what comes next. But of course, supply is only one side of the equation. The real fireworks, the reason we're all paying such close attention right now, is what's happening on the demand side of things. Let's flip the coin. Who is buying all this silver? And why, all of a sudden, do they seem to want more and more of it every year? Well, just look at this list. This is basically the engine room of the entire 21st century. The solar panel industry is absolutely exploding, and they need tons of silver. Electric vehicles need it for their engines and for charging stations. We need it to rebuild our entire electrical grid. And maybe most importantly for the future, the AI and semiconductor industries are completely dependent on it. It's everywhere. This quote from Michael DiRienzo at the Silver Institute just nails it. Anything that has an on or off switch needs silver. I mean, just stop and think about that for a second. Your phone, your car, the server running this website, it all relies on this one metal to work. So what's the grand total? All that demand adds up to a whopping 1.16 billion ounces for 2024. Now, do you remember that supply number I told you to keep in your head a minute ago? And there it is. This chart tells the whole story in one simple picture. On the left, you've got global supply at 1.01 billion ounces. But look at the bar on the right. Global demand is way up at 1.16 billion ounces. The conclusion is just unavoidable. We're using way more silver than we are producing. The result is what the experts call a structural deficit. And this isn't a fluke. This isn't a one-time thing. This is the fourth year in a row that the world has been in this situation. It's a deep, fundamental imbalance in the market. So, we have this major ongoing gap between supply and demand. The billion-dollar question, or maybe the trillion-dollar question, is what happens next? What does this mean for the future of silver?
Well, there are two main schools of thought here. The bulls, the optimists, they say that this insane industrial demand plus silver's classic appeal as a safe investment is going to send prices to the moon. But the bears, the more cautious folks, they point out that companies are trying to use less silver, a process they call thrifting. And they say, hey, eventually new mines will open up and close that supply gap. When you look at what the big mainstream banks are saying, you see a pretty clear pattern. Giants like UBS, Citigroup, and Bank of America, they're all looking at a price somewhere in that $55 to $65 range within the next couple of years. But then you have some really bold predictions floating around, like this one from Philippe Gizzels at BNP Paribas. He's saying, look, I wouldn't be surprised to see silver go well north of $100. And that really captures the wild excitement and the huge potential for volatility in this market right now. So let's wrap this all up. What are the big things to remember? First, silver is living a double life. It's treasure and it's essential tech. Second, its price is set every day in a very specific, very important auction. Third, and this is the big one, demand from things like solar and AI is just flat out bigger than supply. And finally, that gap has created a deficit for years now, which is why you're seeing these wild price predictions all over the place. Which leaves us with one last massive question to think about. As technology pulls silver one way and its ancient history as money pulls it another, are we watching this metal transform right before our eyes into the single most important commodity of our future? The numbers suggest we just might be.